Hey y'all, it's Megan again here on the Lawson Farm. Hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. What Thanksgiving means around here is time to start killing hogs. We did do that this weekend. Knocked a couple out anyway. We still got a few more to go. But what I want to show you today is how I make lard out of the leaf fat. So, leaf fat is the fat that is around the rib cage and around the kidneys of the hog, and that's what you want to use to make your lard. Lard can be difficult sometimes just because it scorches real easy if you're doing it on a stove or over a fire, like the old timers did. So the way I like to do it is in a crock pot, because then I can just put it in there and leave it. There are a couple downfalls to doing it in the crock pot. If you only have one crock pot, you can't do as much at one time. And it does take longer. It takes several hours. But I do like that I can just leave it, and don't have to constantly stir like you do if you're cooking it over a stove or in a black pot, anything like that. So the first thing we're going to want to do, you want to put just enough water in the bottom of your crock pot just to cover the bottom. And that's going to keep it from sticking when it starts cooking. Alright? So I'm going to get some water here. And we're going to put just enough in the bottom. Roughly, I'd say maybe 1/4 of a cup, something like that. Just enough to cover your bottom. Something else you're going to need is a good and sharp knife. Nothing dulls a knife faster than fat. You want to have a good sharp knife and a knife sharpener on hand, because it dulls your knife. If you do have leaf fat, you do have to watch for it to spoil, like if you leave it sitting out or something. So make sure after you do it, after you get your fat, that you do put it in the refrigerator if you're not going to fix it right away, because it will go rancid. So we're just going to start cutting off some pieces. Alright, now you do have to watch for hairs or trash, anything in it, because this did come off a live animal, so just watch for that stuff. We're gonna cut this. I'm gonna show you how big a chunk, about like that. We're gonna cut it up in chunks about like this. Something that small is gonna give you good cracklings. What cracklings are just pretty much fried pieces of grease. Go wonderful in cornbread. You can freeze them to keep them. And you just cut this up, and I fill my crock pot plumb to the top. I mean, I get it as full as I can get it. Like I said, as y'all can see here, that's about the size that I'm doing it. So I won't be able to get this whole big chunk of fat in there. This is off of one hog, all this fat. So, I mean, you get quite a bit. But I won't be able to get it all in the crock pot, so what I'll do is put this back in the refrigerator. Lard is great for seasoning cast iron, cooking biscuits, makes excellent pie crusts. Anything you use to cook grease, with grease or vegetable oil, you can use your lard. So, I mean, it makes beautiful fried chicken, beautiful fried potatoes. I like to fry potatoes in it. It makes them delicious. And I haven't had a problem. I've done this method right here for several years, and I have not had a problem with having dirty lard. My lard usually comes out just beautiful, clear, white, which of course I filter it, before I put it in the jars, but it usually comes out just plumb beautiful. Alright, so I'm going to get this cut up and I'll get back to y'all. Alright, y'all, so I've got my crock pot as full as it's going to get. As you can see, I've got it level with the top. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and put the lid on. We're going to put this on low. We're going to let it do its magic. I'd recommend checking on it about every hour. Give it a little stir. And there's really no time frame. It just depends on the fat and how small your pieces are. But how you know your lard is done is when the cracklings that are in it stop bubbling around them. That's how you know that your lard is ready to put in the jars. So I'm going to get this going. And as you can see, don't even hardly look like I made a dent in my fat. But I'm gonna put that back in the refrigerator. I'll get that batch going whenever this batch gets done. I like to make quite a bit of lard because we do eat quite a bit of it. I know it's not the healthiest thing, but it's better than eating margarine with plastic in it. So at least I know where this stuff comes from. But anyway, so I'm gonna get this going. This lard's been going right at about 4 hours, something like that. Got some good bubbling action going on. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut my heat up to high. Now that it's got plenty of liquid in there, so this lard we shouldn't have any trouble with it sticking. So like I said, now that there's plenty of liquid, we're gonna go ahead and cut our temperature up to high. We're nowhere near ready just yet, but you can see it kind of bubbling in there. When we're closer to being done, this right here, these chunks are going to be crispy and kind of brown. So like I said, nowhere near done yet. But that right there, that's our lard. And really what we're doing when you're rendering fat, really what you're doing is cooking the water out of it. That's your main goal, is, you know, you got to cook all the water out of it. That's why you wait till your cracklings for them to stop bubbling, because that means it's cooked all of that out of there. Because if you don't do that, then your lard will spoil and it won't be shelf stable as long as it could have been. So I'm going to put that lid back on there. I done crank my heat up to high. We're going to let that keep going, and I'll get back to you. Alright, so it's been about another 4-ish hours. My lard is just about ready. For the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and put some in a jar for you. My cracklings aren't just quite as crispy as I want them, so I will let this go just a little while longer. But I'm going to go ahead and show y'all what I do with putting this in the jar. So with lard, you want to have a good strainer. I have this little thing, and it does perfect, especially for wide mouth jars, because it fits right down in it. So what we're going to do, we're just going to go start scooping out. And fill our jar up. Lard is shelf stable at room temperature. Sometimes my jars seal, sometimes they don't, but it keeps fine. So you don't have to worry about actually like doing a hot water bath or nothing like that when you're making lard, because it is, after it is rendered down, it is shelf stable. And so you want it to look pretty clear in this part of the process when you're first putting it in the jars, and then you want it to be snow white after it cools. Sometimes lard can have a brownish tint. Still tastes good, maybe a little more porky when it has that brownish tint. But making it this way, like I said at the beginning of the video, I've always had beautiful, clean lard. And I go back and forth. Sometimes I put it in quarts, sometimes I put it in pints. I like to give the pints away to neighbors and friends and things, so just depends on what I'm going to do with it. And so tomorrow what I'll do is I'll cut up the rest of that fat and get me another batch going. The good thing about this is, like I said earlier, I have not had to worry about this all day. Like, I had some errands to run, I just left the crock pot going. You know, I'm not having to stand here and constantly stir it. That's one thing that I really love about this method, and the reason that I do this method, because I know I could do a bigger pot at one time and have more, but it would actually be more time consuming than this is, so that's why I choose to do it in the crock pot. If you don't slaughter your own hogs, I'm sure you could find leaf fat at your local butcher if you just go ask. If you wanted to try to make your own lard. And something else you can do with lard, you can actually make soap from it, lard lye soap. It's kind of a harsh soap, but it's good for washing your hands, things like that. It'll about take the skin off your hands if you don't do it just right. But yeah, I made some last year, and it was pretty good soap. I hadn't decided if I'm going to make any this year or not. But these cracklings, like I said, I'm gonna let them get a little more crispy. I think I got a little bit more fat that can come out of them before I get them out. And what we'll do with those is put them in a freezer bag after they cool. I'll put them out on a paper towel and let them cool, and then put them in the freezer. And you don't even have to keep lard in a glass jar if you don't want to. I know some people used to put it in those metal coffee tins, different things like that. Just because it is shelf stable, so you don't really have to worry about actually canning it. Alright, so this is what I just dipped out. It's pretty clear, as you can tell there. That's what you want to see. So as that cools, it'll harden, and we'll have our beautiful white lard. And I actually dipped some out a little earlier, and I've been letting it cool just so I can show y'all what it looks like. Beautiful snow white lard, and this is what I usually get every time doing it in the crock pot. Doesn't have a brown tint, nothing like that. It's clear, beautiful lard. I think it's pretty anyway. Alright, y'all. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned a little something. If you got any questions, as always, just leave them in the comments. Please follow me on my Facebook page and my Instagram. I'll put the links in the description if you want to follow me there. And please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel if you hadn't already, if you enjoy this stuff. So I'll see y'all next time.